Hello, my name is Carrie Brown and I am with the Central Mississippi Regional Library System. Today I'm going to be reading to you chapters 3 and 4 of A to Z Mysteries, The Goose's Gold. Written by Ron Roy, illustrated by John Stephen Gurney, published by Random House, New York. Chapter 3. The kids thanked Spike and Chip and walked back along the dock. "I wonder how much those coins are worth," Josh said. "A lot," Ruth Rose said. Josh sighed. "Wouldn't it be cool to dive for treasure?" "Josh," Dink said, "you need to know how to use an air tank and everything. They go down deep." Across the street, a small orange train was loading up with passengers. "There's the trolley," Ruth Rose said. "Let's catch it." The kids rushed over. They climbed aboard and sat right behind the driver. When most of the seats were filled, the trolley gave a jolt, then moved down the street. "Where does the trolley go?" Dink asked the driver. "We go everywhere, my man," said the driver. He handed Dink a map. "See those blue circles? Those are my stops. You can get off at any of them, then hop back on when I come by again." The driver stopped the train in front of a white building with overflowing flower boxes. The sign in front of the building read, "Mel Fisher's Treasure Museum. See Spanish gold and silver inside." "Who's Mel Fisher?" Dink asked the driver. "Mel Fisher found an old Spanish ship loaded with gold and silver," he said. "Some of what he found is in this museum." He pointed at the sign. "Why don't you kids hop off and check it out? I'll swing by again in about 45 minutes. "All right," Josh said. The kids got off the trolley and followed a few of the other sightseers to the museum. Inside were rows of glass cases. Each case held gleaming gold, silver, or jewelry. The kids walked around the room staring at the priceless treasures. After a while, Ruth Rose stopped in front of a picture of Mel Fisher. He was wearing a long gold chain. The real chain was displayed in a glass case below the picture. "Listen," Ruth Rose said. "This solid gold chain was made in 1622 and weighs 200 pounds. It is worth more than $1 million. "Boy, imagine wearing that around your neck," Josh said. Dink was looking at a picture of Mel Fisher's boat. "Look, this says it took him almost 20 years to find the treasure." "Speaking of food, let's get some lunch," Josh said. "We weren't talking about food," Ruth Rose said. "Well, my stomach was," said Josh. "Looking at treasure makes me hungry." A few minutes later, the trolley stopped back at the museum. "What do you think of all that gold?" the driver asked them. "Pretty amazing, huh?" "Did Mel Fisher get to keep everything he found?" Dink asked. The driver shook his head. "Some had to go to the state of Florida, but he and his investors got rich on the rest." "What are investors?" Josh asked. "People who lent Mel Fisher money," said the driver. "Fisher had to borrow a lot to buy equipment and pay his crew. When he struck it rich, he paid his investors back with gold." The man grinned in his mirror. "Wish he'd asked me to invest." A few minutes later, the kids said goodbye and hopped off the trolley. They raced home and rushed into Graham Hathaway's kitchen. "How was your morning?" she asked. "We rode on the trolley, Graham," Ruth Rose said. "The driver was so nice." "He dropped us off at the Mel Fisher Museum," Dink said. "And we met two guys who dive for treasure," Josh added. "We went on their boat and saw real gold coins." Ruth Rose's grandmother smiled. "I'm glad you got to see some treasure," she said with sparkling eyes. "Now, let me tell you about our special company. Their names are Spike and Chip." Chapter 4. "Graham, how do you know Spike and Chip?" Ruth Rose asked. "Wash up for lunch and I'll tell you all about it," her grandmother said. The kids crowded around the kitchen sink and washed their hands. "A few weeks ago, Spike and Chip came to my senior center," Ruth Rose's Graham said. She set a plate of sandwiches on the table. The kids wiped their hands and sat down. "They told us all about the treasure they found," Graham continued. She poured lemonade. "Now they're looking for investors, just like Mel Fisher," Dink said. He reached for a tuna sandwich. "That's right, Dink," Graham said. Josh heaped 3 sandwiches onto his plate. "Are you going to get rich?" he asked. Ruth Rose's grandmother laughed. We'll have to wait and see, she said. Anyway, we're thinking about investing $10,000. Gram, Ruth Rose said. Her grandmother's eyes twinkled. I know, it is a little scary. Boy, I'd do anything to go with them when they die for treasure, Josh said. That reminds me, Gram said. She took 3 presents off the counter. Merry Christmas. Wow, thanks, Gram, said Ruth Rose. Yeah, thanks, said Dink and Josh. They're all the same, Gram Hathaway said. That way you won't have to share. The kids pulled off the paper. Inside, they each found a book called Finding Sunken Treasure in Florida. The cover showed a boat like the one Mel Fisher had used. Under the boat was a sunken ship. Divers were searching the wreck and bringing up treasure. I thought you'd have fun learning about shipwrecks, said Gram, since I might be investing in one. This is so neat, Josh said. Thanks a lot. Ruth Rose's grandmother stood up. You're very welcome. Now I have to get busy. Spike and Chip will be here in an hour. Can you help me set up the living room? Sure, Dink said. What do you want us to do? I'll need about 10 folding chairs. They're in the hall closet. And bring out the 3 card tables. The kids arranged the tables and chairs around the living room. Gram Hathaway set out covered tables of cookies on one of the tables. Can we stay for the meeting? Ruth Rose asked. Of course, her grandmother said. After you read those books, I expect you to ask intelligent questions. The kids took their books out to the front porch. Look, Josh said, there's a whole chapter just about Mel Fisher. Ruth Rose pointed to a map showing sunken ships. They're all off the coast of Florida, she said. If each one has treasure on it, think how much that is. Josh lay back on the porch and closed his eyes. I'm staying here when you guys go back home. I'm going to become a treasure hunter. Dink laughed. You find treasure? You couldn't find your shorts this morning, Josh. Josh jabbed Dink with his knee. Call me Captain Josh, please. Just then a car pulled up. 2 gray-haired women climbed out and hurried toward the house. I'm going in to help Gram, Ruth Rose said. We'll help too, said Dink. He nudged Josh. Come on, Captain Josh. Before they could go inside, a yellow cab stopped out front. Spike and Chip climbed out. Spike was carrying a wooden box. They were both dressed in clean pants, pressed shirts, and sandals. Hi, Josh said as the 2 men walked up the sidewalk. Spike and Chip stared at the kids. Finally, Chip waved. How are you doing? Do you guys live around here? Ruth Rose laughed. No, we're visiting my grandmother. This is her house. Spike smiled. What a small world, he said. Can I carry the box in? Josh asked. Spike shrugged. It's pretty heavy. I can help, Dink said. They ran down the sidewalk and Spike handed them the box. Josh grinned as they lugged the heavy box up the steps. My fingers feel all tingly, he said. Thank you. Be sure to tune in next week for chapters 5 and 6. Goodbye.